Upbeat storytelling music starts and fades into the background. Have you ever been called lazy? Maybe you're the kind of person who always looks for the easiest, most efficient way to get something done. Well, what if I told you that this very trait, often seen as a flaw, could actually be your secret superpower? Today, we're diving into the incredible story of a boy named Ryan, whose laziness led him to a path of unexpected genius and triumph. This isn't just a fairy tale. It's a lesson in how thinking differently can change everything. So, get comfortable, because you're about to see how a lazy boy became a legendary winner. In a small, sun-drenched village, nestled among rolling hills and vast green rice paddies, lived a young boy named Ryan. Now, Ryan wasn't like the other kids. While they ran through the fields with boundless energy, Ryan preferred the cool shade of a large banyan tree. He was, to put it mildly, exceptionally lazy. His father, a hard-working farmer, would often sigh, watching his son. The biggest chore Ryan had was to scare away the birds that loved to feast on the ripening grains in their family's rice field. It was a simple job, but for Ryan, it was a monumental effort. Most boys would run around, waving their arms and shouting. Not Ryan, he thought. Why run when you can sit? So, he devised a brilliant, if lazy, system. He gathered all the old pots and pans he could find, tied long ropes to them, and strung them up on poles across the field. He then ran all the ropes back to his favorite shady spot. While lounging comfortably, all he had to do was give a rope a little tug, clang, bang, clatter. The noise would echo across the field, sending the birds scattering in a panic. He could protect the entire field without ever standing up. His father would shake his head, half in exasperation and half in quiet admiration. Ryan wasn't just lazy, he was a lazy genius. Life continued in this comfortable, lazy rhythm for Ryan. He spent his days perfecting his bird-scaring contraption, finding the quickest routes for his errands, and generally conserving as much energy as humanly possible. He believed that every problem had a shortcut, and he was determined to find it. But life, as it often does, had a different plan. One morning, the rooster crowed, but his father didn't rise. He had fallen gravely ill, a sudden and severe fever leaving him weak and bedridden. The responsibility of the entire farm, the plowing, the planting, and the constant care, fell squarely onto Ryan's young shoulders. Suddenly, his clever shortcuts weren't enough. The real, hard work of a farmer was something he couldn't automate with ropes and pans. He tried to till the soil, but his arms, unaccustomed to labor, ached after just a few minutes. He tried to manage the irrigation channels, but he didn't know how to properly direct the water flow. The fields, once lush and green, began to suffer under his inexperienced care. The weight of his failure pressed down on him heavily. Looking at his sick father and the wilting crops, a deep sense of regret washed over him. If only I had paid more attention, he mumbled to himself. If only I had worked harder and learned from my father, instead of always looking for the easy way out. The lazy boy was finally face to face with a problem he couldn't think his way out of, or so he thought. Just as despair began to set in, a royal messenger on horseback thundered through the village. He unrolled a grand scroll and announced in a booming voice, His Majesty the King announces the annual royal competition, a test of strength, wit, and spirit. The grand prize is a chest of gold, enough to ensure a lifetime of prosperity. A spark ignited in Ryan's eyes. A chest of gold, that was the answer. It could pay for the best doctors for his father and hire hands to help with the farm until he recovered. It was a long shot, a crazy idea, but it was the only hope he had. The other villagers murmured amongst themselves, "Ryan, he's too lazy to even walk to the palace, let alone compete." But they underestimated the power of his motivation. For the first time, Ryan wasn't thinking about avoiding work. He was thinking about saving his family. With a newfound determination burning in his chest, he packed a small bag and set off for the king's palace. The competition was even more daunting than he had imagined. The first challenge was a race across a wide, deep lake. Burly, muscular men from all over the kingdom were already starting to chop down huge trees to build heavy rafts. They grunted and sweated, relying on pure brute force. Ryan looked at the massive trees and then at his own thin arms. He knew he couldn't compete with their strength, so he didn't try. Instead, he walked along the lake's edge, his mind racing. His eyes fell upon a thicket of bamboo. An idea, born from his years of finding easier ways to do things, flashed in his mind. Bamboo was light, hollow, and incredibly buoyant, while the others were still struggling to haul their heavy logs. Ryan quickly gathered several stalks of bamboo, lashing them together with strong vines. He constructed a small, light, and incredibly efficient raft. He slid it into the water, hopped on, and with a simple pole, he glided effortlessly across the lake, leaving the strong men and their cumbersome rafts far behind. He was the first to reach the other side, much to the astonishment of the crowd and the king himself, who watched from his balcony with a curious smile. The second challenge was to move a giant, perfectly square block of stone from one end of the palace courtyard to the other. Again, the strong man got to work, trying to push and pull the block with all their might. Their muscles strained, and sweat poured down their faces, but the block barely budged. Ryan stood back and observed. Pushing a square was inefficient. The corners would dig into the ground, creating immense friction. He thought back to his childhood, rolling pebbles down a hill. What if the block wasn't a block? He approached the judges and asked for a chisel and hammer. The crowd chuckled. What's the lazy boy going to do? Chip it to pieces. But Ryan ignored them. With focused energy, he began to methodically chip away at the corners and edges of the giant stone cube. Slowly but surely, he chiseled and carved, rounding the block until it was no longer a cube, but a rough, oversized sphere. Once it was round, he gave it a mighty shove. The stone, now a ball, began to roll. It was still heavy, but now he could guide it, using its own momentum. He rolled the massive stone ball across the courtyard, right to the finish line, while the other contestants were still stuck at the start. The final challenge was a test of intellect, a complex riddle posed by the king's wisest advisor. The strong men were stumped, their minds exhausted from the physical trials. But Ryan's mind was sharp. His whole life had been one big riddle. How do I get this done with the least effort? This was a challenge he was born for. He listened carefully, turned the words over in his head, and saw the simple, elegant answer that was hidden behind the complicated phrasing. He stepped forward and gave his answer, clear and confident. A hush fell over the crowd, followed by a collective gasp as the advisor smiled and nodded. Ryan had solved it. The king stood up and applauded. The lazy boy from the small village had outthought, outsmarted, and outmaneuvered every other competitor. The king summoned Ryan to the throne. "Young man," he said, his voice echoing in the grand hall, "you did not win with the strength of your arms, but with the strength of your mind. You have shown us that true power lies not in brute force, but in cleverness and ingenuity. He then presented Ryan with the chest of gleaming gold coins. Ryan bowed deeply, his heart overflowing with gratitude. He addressed the king and the entire court, his voice steady and clear. "Your Majesty," he said, "people have always called me lazy, and perhaps I am. But I have learned that I can think smart, and when it comes to my family, I can work hard." He returned to his village, not just as a winner, but as a hero. The gold paid for the best medicine for his father, who made a full recovery. And Ryan, he didn't stop being lazy. He still looked for the smartest, most efficient way to do things. But now, he combined his clever mind with a powerful sense of purpose and determination. Ryan's story teaches us something profound. It's a powerful reminder that our perceived weaknesses can sometimes be our greatest strengths when viewed from a different angle. Success doesn't always come from following the beaten path or working harder in the conventional sense. It often comes from working smarter, from being innovative, and from having the determination to apply our unique talents to the challenges we face. Ryan's laziness was actually a gift for problem solving and efficiency. It was his unwavering love for his family that unlocked its true potential. So the next time you try to find a shortcut, don't just think of it as being lazy. Think of it as being like Ryan, thinking smart and paving your own unique path to success. What did you think of Ryan's journey? Let me know in the comments below if you ever used a lazy solution that turned out to be brilliant. And if you enjoyed this story and want more inspiring content like it, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.